Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the University of the West Indies Global Campus's HealthyHer 2025 International Women's Month event. My name is Colleen Robinson-Hunt, and I'm the Programme Officer for the Women and Development Unit, known as WAND, and I'll be your moderator for tonight's event. Before I introduce our esteemed principal to officially welcome you, I'd like to quickly bless tonight's proceedings. We pray that the information that is presented will be a help to anyone who needs it and a refreshing reminder for those who are already aware. We ask that the presenters will eloquently present the information, there will be no technology issues, and we will all benefit from the information provided. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So I'm honoured to introduce the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Global Campus, Dr. Francis Severin, to give the formal address. Over to you, Dr. Severin.
Good night. A very pleasant evening, each and every one of you. I hope that you're hearing me quite clearly. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be here with you tonight on this very special occasion. I am honored to greet you on behalf of the senior management team, staff and students of the Global Campus, and in particular, the Women and Development Unit within the Consortium for Social Development and Research. The month of March is observed as Women's History Month. On March 8th, women were recognized and appreciated across the world in observance of International Women's Day, which was celebrated under the theme, Accelerating Action. It is my understanding that this evening's seminar is convened in the light of International Women's Month. This seminar also embraces the aforementioned theme that focuses on women's health. I wish to commence by extending a special and warm and hearty welcome to our invited guests. Mrs. Valerie Aline, Program Coordinator of the Cardiac Disease Prevention and Rehabilitation Unit, the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Ms. Sarah Stennett, Charge Nurse, Early Detection Clinic, Barbados Cancer Society, and Mrs. Kathleen Goodin, Registered Nutritionist, Good Step Wellness. Thank you all for your distinguished presence, and we look forward with alacrity to your respective presentations. I also extend a special welcome to my colleagues, and I want to recognize my Deputy Principal, who is here, Dr. Emily Dick-Ford, and of course, other members of the senior management team of the Global Campus. And of course, to our audience in the Zoom, as well as on YouTube. As Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Global Campus, I take this opportunity to salute all women across the region and the globe, but especially allow me to highlight the female citizens of the Global Campus. Your extraordinary contribution to our campus's development and your unwavering dedication to your families and societies are remarkable. We do not often pause to convey such precious words of appreciation to you, so we want to do it tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, the UWI for over 75 years, through its mission, seeks to advance learning, create knowledge, and foster innovation for the positive transformation of the Caribbean and the wider world. At the Global Campus, we are excited to be part of this mission to contribute to the development and nurturing of the future generation. Activist and former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, once said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Since we're discussing accelerating action and changing the world, education as President Mandela said, is the most powerful weapon that one can use to make a positive difference in this world. At the global campus, we have more females than males on our register. 82.7% females, 17.3% males. The foregoing is a global trend, and the graphs and charts indicate a preponderance of females over males in higher education. Curiously, we tend to see this phenomenon as problematic. Whenever I ponder this trend, however, I ask myself if the inverse were true, that is, if males preponderated over females in higher education in the region, as an example, would this be considered equally problematic? And if so, why? I will, however, leave this interesting argument for another occasion when we have more time to unpack and deconstruct this dilemma or conundrum, or perhaps ambivalence. I will simply say for now, from a personal point of view, which must not be taken to represent the campus's posture on the matter, that I do not see this as a worrying crisis per se, but more none on this. While we continue to encourage our males to get on board and invest in their education, it is a fact that with more females being educated, more women are being empowered, resulting in our women being at the receiving end of positive outcomes. That is, the women are boldly acquiring the tools, the weapons, as President Mandela puts it, to transform the world. This is an affirmative trajectory. Educated women are better equipped in decision-making for their families, especially when such decisions relate to health and wellness. An educated female population also leads to better employment opportunities for women, as well as leading to greater gender equality in various sectors. Besides, more women with higher education usually leads to higher incomes for the very gender which tends to focus on the nourishment, broadly defined, of the family, causing it to survive and thrive. To be sure, it is quite possible to argue that the education of women has a tremendous multiplier effect on their access to healthcare and other resources that enhance their well-being, and that of their families, who are more likely to gain from the education of the females than of males. What a wonderful world it would be if sisters always supported other sisters, and all men viewed women as equals to be respected, loved, and valued. What successful societies we would have if males and females did not feel insecure and threatened by the presence of courageous and confident women. According to UNICEF, girls who receive an education are more likely to lead healthy, productive lives. They grow up to participate in the decisions that most affect them and build better futures for themselves and their families. Girls' education is a key contributing factor to building more resilient and equitable societies. UNICEF also asserts, investing in girls' education transforms communities, countries, and the entire world. They earn higher incomes, participate in the decisions that most affect them, and build better futures for themselves and their families. Girls' education strengthens economies and reduces inequality. It contributes to more stable, resilient societies that give all individuals, including boys and men, the opportunity to fulfill their full potential. Francis Bacon's words, "Knowledge is power," is certainly applicable in the context of the foregoing. At the Global Campus, we are empowering everyone, staff, students, males and females, with the knowledge required to live more fulfilling lives. The Human Resource Department has over the years embarked on a series of webinars, and I wish to highlight the webinar topics that focus on health in the year 2024-2025. Of course, all staff members are invited to attend. The following should give you a sensibility of what the focus or the foci would be. Kickstart 2025 with better health, controlling metabolic diseases, stress management. Let's discuss menopause and its effect on women in the workplace, dengue, what you need to know, and wellness and fitness. Have fun and feel good. We continue to make these webinars accessible while providing accurate information. We all know that a key to living a healthy life is preventative care, especially when we speak about the NCDs or non-communicable disease. And being aware of and sensitized to these topics will lead to the empowerment of not only our females, but also our males. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which was developed by world leaders in 2015, is our roadmap for sustainable progress. And the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, more popularly known as SDGs, which aim to leave no one behind, address a wide range of global challenges, including health and gender equality. SDG 3 aims to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. While SDG 5 seeks to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Our relentless pursuit of these SDGs at the Global Campus drives us, motivates us, triggers us. Hence, we do not despair in the face of the apparent gender imbalance in our enrollment. At the UWI, gender justice is one of the 5 core values. As a core value, gender justice means that we will seek to vigorously create and sustain a social, academic, and administrative culture that supports and promotes gender equality and justice within our academic ecosystem. We also foster culture and work-study environment that is transparent, inclusive, and welcoming to different ideas and perspectives, acknowledging and valuing or embracing the core value of diversity. Regardless of race, socioeconomic status, age, sex, gender identity, and expression, physical and mental ability, political or religious persuasion, health status, and other characteristics that make our constituents unique, we are committed to ensuring equitable opportunities and inclusive engagement for all. In that regard, we are deeply proud of the pedigree of our Global Campus's Women and Development Unit and its work and outreach, including this seminar, in advancing the core values of gender justice and diversity. Kudos to Mrs. Colleen Robinson Hunt, who has accepted the challenge of this leadership role of WAND. The focus on women's health this evening is therefore very timely, given the urgency and magnitude of global health challenges, especially those facing women. The data before us is alarming, and the theme for International Women's Month, Accelerating Action, serves as a reminder of the urgent need to act now and address the issues that affect the lives of women of all ages. We underscore the importance of education, which plays a crucial role in empowering women by providing knowledge, skills, and opportunities to overcome barriers. Equally important, however, is the foundation for a fulfilling and productive life, good health. Health refers not only to physical well-being, but also to mental and emotional wellness. Last November 2024, I addressed the first cohort of the Global Campus Academy of Sport. And in my address, I shared with the graduates that SDG 3, which relates to good health and well-being, was the best place to begin the advocacy as proud ambassadors of the UWI. I also shared with them that it is no secret that in the Caribbean, there is a high prevalence of non-communicable disease. And we often hear that the most effective way to prevent these diseases is to adopt healthy lifestyles. I also conveyed that the World Health Organization, WHO, identified physical inactivity as a fourth leading risk factor for global mortality. With that said, and with your theme, Accelerating Action, I wish to encourage our women to engage in healthier lifestyles, starting with a regular physical activity. Incorporating movement into your daily routines not only reduces the risk of contracting non-communicable diseases, such as diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and certain cancers, but it also promotes healthier minds by improving mood, reducing stress, and enhancing overall emotional well-being. Let us all take intentional steps toward a more active and vibrant life for ourselves and for those we inspire. As a region, we are richly blessed with fertile soil that enables us to grow what we eat and eat what we grow, with breathtaking landscapes, as well as lovely sand and ocean that invite us to reconnect with nature. These natural gifts support not only our physical health, but also nourish our minds and souls. Let us use what we have to live healthier, more balanced lives. I truly believe that by working together, we can accelerate action for gender equality and good health. This journey toward better health and equality doesn't require perfection. It requires action, courage, and authenticity. Michelle Obama captures this beautifully and elegantly in the words found in her book, Becoming, when she said, "It's not about being perfect. It's not about where you get yourself in the end. There's power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, in owning your unique story, in using your authentic voice." With these words in mind, my dear friends, I warmly welcome all of you to this wonderful seminar and extend my very best wishes for an inspiring and empowering experience. Thank you and peace.
Thank you so much, Principal, for your warm and informative welcome. You've definitely set the tone for the rest of the evening. I'm so pleased that you were able to be here this evening and give welcoming remarks. And I personally appreciate the support you have given to WAND and to myself for this event this evening. So thank you again, Principal. Okay, so before we begin with our first presentation, I want to take this opportunity to give a brief overview of WAND and what we do for those who may not be aware, and provide additional context for tonight's event. So WAND is the Women in Development Unit, and it was established in August 1978. The work of the unit is traditionally committed to supporting and promoting women's development through training, research, documentation, and community outreach. The unit joined the University of the West Indies, then the Open Campus, we're now the Global Campus, in 2008, becoming a unit of the Consortium for Social Development and Research, CSDR. The WAND unit centers women and their families in Caribbean development by adapting an inclusive and intersectional approach, which looks at women's economic participation, women with disabilities, women's sexual identity, gender-based violence, and women and children. The unit also centers Caribbean development through online learning, technical partnerships, policy development, research, and advocacy. So that's a little bit about WAND. We have a page on the UE Global Campus website where you can read some more of what we do, including our strategic areas of focus. We also have an IG page, which is WAND, WAND_UWIGC, where we'll be keeping you up to date on all the activities and events coming up. So this year's theme, as the principal just mentioned, for International Women's Day was Accelerate Action. And according to the World Economic Forum, it will take until 2137 if we continue at the current rate to achieve gender equality. When we hear accelerate action, particularly in relation to gender and women, we think workplace progression, equality in pay, allowances, dismantling patriarchal structures and mindsets. However, at WAM, we decided to look at accelerate action through a different lens, women's health. And again, the principal alluded to some of the reasons in terms of the global state and regional state of our health. Women's health is not overly discussed unless it is in relation to breast or cervical cancer or pregnancy. And not much is known, for example, the signs that a woman may display having a heart attack, that her symptoms and her signs may be very different from how a man displays having a heart attack. Many women also suffer every day with chronic pain with their menstrual cycle or the very real symptoms of perimenopause, which can last for years, which may not be obvious or visible, but can affect every aspect of a woman's life. In addition, the region has a severe problem with NCDs. Some research was done, slightly dated, but I think nonetheless it sets the tone. In 2019, Razagi et al. Said the Caribbean region faces the highest burden from NCDs for developing nations in the Americas, and chronic non-communicable diseases are the leading causes of death. NCDs are linked to more than 70% of deaths in the region, which is similar to the current global average. As we're based in Barbados, obviously we're a regional university, but just focus on Barbados just for the moment. The top 4 NCDs in Barbados are hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and cancer. Just last week, I heard personnel from the Queen Elizabeth Hospital talking about the significant rise in patients presenting at the hospital with diabetes-related concerns. There was also another report that was recently released about women suffering more strokes than men, particularly in the age bracket of 65 years and over. So with this, we decided that if we are saying that, you know, your health is your wealth, rings true, and if the region is to be productive and compete on the global stage, we need to be as healthy as we can be. A barrier to women's acceleration and elevation is a lack of knowledge around health and wellness and the importance of being healthy, exercising, and raising healthy children. And that's not to say that only women raise children. We know fathers raise children as well, or men raise children as well. But research shows that 50% of households in Barbados or in the region are headed by females. So they will have majority of the responsibility for obviously the meals prepared in the home. This event and others will continue to raise these important issues to assist with the agenda of good health and wellness across the region. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin with our presenters. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentations, but please feel free to drop your comments and your questions in the chat as we go along. We'd like to keep your mic muted unless you are indicated to speak. And so with no further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Mrs. Valerie Aline. Mrs. Aline boasts more than 2 decades of experience as a registered nurse with a specialization in mental health nursing, although the bulk of her career has been devoted to geriatric nursing. Departing from the government system 5 years ago, she sought to explore new avenues within her nursing profession. During this period, she ventured into entrepreneurship while concurrently assuming her current role as the program coordinator for the cardiac rehab program at the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados. In this capacity, she oversees and coordinates activities within the cardiac rehab, stroke rehab, and preventative programs. Valerie's passion for nursing stems from her profound joy in witnessing individuals embark on their journey to recovery and reclaiming their wholeness. Continuing her path in cardiac rehabilitation, Ms. Aline remains resolute in her dedication to effecting positive change in the lives of those under her care. Armed with over 2 decades of nursing expertise and a newfound zeal for cardiac rehabilitation, she is poised to perpetuate her mission of healing, empowerment, and instilling hope in all those she encounters. Outside her professional endeavors, Mrs. Aline is a devoted wife and mother to 3 children. Over to you, Mrs. Valerie Aline.
Thank you, Mrs. Colleen Hunt, Mrs. Frances Severin, the poor Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UE Global Campus, Mrs. Colleen Hunt, Program Officer of the Women's Development Unit and her team, my fellow presenters, and to you, the audience, good evening. I just want to start my presentation by sharing a story with you about a lady called Sarah. Before I do that, I just want to share my slides, my screen. Now, Sarah was a 48-year-old teacher, always busy taking care of her family, her students, and everything in between. She rarely had time for herself, often skipping meals or grabbing something quick to eat between classes. She felt tired most days, but she assumed it was just part of life. One afternoon, while helping her students with a project, she suddenly felt dizzy. Her chest felt tight and her left arm tingled. She thought, it's probably just stress. But within minutes, she collapsed. By the time she reached the hospital, the doctors confirmed she had suffered a heart attack. Like many women, Sarah never thought she was at risk. After all, heart disease was something she thought mostly affected men. So many of us don't realize, like Sarah, how critical cardiovascular health is for women. It is easy to think that heart disease is something that only affects men. In fact, before it was known as a man's disease. But the reality is that it has a huge impact on women's health. Now, I'm going to go outside of Barbados. I would have heard colleagues spoke about some stats as relates to the region and as relates to Barbados. But the World Heart Federation states that 30% of deaths in women are caused by cardiovascular disease, and it is double the number of deaths from cancer. The American Heart Association also reports that heart disease kills 1 in 3 women annually, far more than all types of cancer put together. However, in the PAHO country profile for Barbados 2024, in 2019, it states that men are more likely, though, to die from NCDs like heart disease and diabetes. Now, when we look at the numbers, it might seem quite shocking to us. And it also then highlights why it is important to raise awareness, have sessions like these, so that persons can be well educated and persons can come to an understanding about how we can be empowered as women to take charge of our health, more so our heart. Our heart is an organ that beats all the time. When we're sleeping, it beats. When we're doing different activities, enjoying life, partying, it continues to be, it never stops. So therefore, we need to take care and attention of our heart. So in this session, we are going to look at unique risks and symptoms associated with women. We're going to look at the difference in how heart disease affects men and women, and we're going to discuss practical steps that women can take to reduce their risks and live heart healthy lives. By the end of the presentation, I hope that you all will feel empowered to take control of your heart health, and you will also help others around you to do the same. We are not in this race alone. We are here to help each other as women and to empower them to do the right thing. Our heart, as I said earlier, deserves the care and attention it needs. But before we can go into that, we first must understand what is cardiovascular health. What is cardiovascular health? Now, cardiovascular health is the health of the heart and the blood vessels. So when you hear about cardiovascular, cardio means heart, vascular deals with the blood vessels. So cardiovascular health then is the health which refers to the health of the heart and blood vessels. It includes the prevention, the diagnosis, and treatments of heart diseases and stroke. And I just want to actually show you some types of common heart disease within our women. And one, namely, that everybody know of is hypertension. And we want to know how this become a cardiovascular disease, because hypertension affects the arteries, which is a blood vessel. We know that the heart pumps blood through the blood vessel, namely the artery, and the artery is responsible for sending oxygenated blood that filled with oxygen and nutrients to the cells and to the tissues and the organs so that it can function, so that we all can enjoy life. So the pressure as the blood flows through the artery, that pressure that is exerted on the arterial walls is called the blood pressure. Now, when that blood pressure is consistently high, the doctor can diagnose you of having hypertension. Then we have heart disease, and then we have stroke. We know that a stroke is a condition in the blood vessel again, because we want to know how come stroke can be a cardiovascular disease, but stroke deals with the blood vessels in the brain, and the blood vessel can either be blocked by a clot or it can actually rupture, right? And that can also lead to stroke. We have heart failure, when the heart as a pump is not able efficiently to meet the body's demand, and atrial fibrillation. This deals with the rhythm of the heart. So when we look at symptoms of cardiovascular disease, when we look at men versus women, we know that the classic signs for men, right, well, more so, generally is chest pains. When we look at movies with people experiencing heart attack, the first thing they do is grab their chest. Anytime we think about heart attack, we think about persons grabbing their chest, or person actually describing like they're having some type of pressure on the chest or discomfort, right? So that is a classic sign that some women, they say about 50% of women might have that chest pain. So the common signs between men and women is chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, nausea, fatigue. However, there are unique symptoms for women: pain in the back, jaw, or abdomen, shortness of breath without chest pains, extreme fatigue, and women might also have issues of sleep disturbance. I had a patient who would have mentioned to me that she was losing weight and her blood sugars were very high. And she thought that she was just coming down with a flu, a bug, right? And all that time, she didn't know that she was experiencing a heart attack. So the symptoms in women are very atypical. They're not as typical as in men, and because of that, the actual diagnosis can be underdiagnosed or it can be misdiagnosed, and because of that, it can cause women to have a poor prognosis as it relates to heart attacks. In women, sometimes, especially in Barbados, we know when we have chest pains or when we say we have upset stomach, which is a classic sign for heart attacks in women, the first thing we're going to think about is gas. I got some gas. And the first thing we're not going to go to a doctor, of course. As women, we're going to go and get that good old ginger tea, right? And start to pat the back and pat the chest and see if we can get some air out. And while we are patting, what we're doing is patting a heart attack, and we're not aware. And that is why the symptoms is in women are it's very funny, because as I said earlier, when we have these type of symptoms, we will not think that it's a heart attack. We might think, okay, I'm tired, I might need some rest, or I might just feel stressed out. I might just having a panic attack, right? So these women often experience symptoms that differ from the classic heart attack signs seen in men, which then leads to delay in diagnosis. And this delay in diagnosis then can also lead in death. Women also have a different presentation as it relates to the disease, because it is said that women sometimes have smaller coronary arteries, and the effects of the blockage and the symptoms that are experienced can be different within the female. So let's look at shared risk factors. So share risk factors within the men and female are the same: hypertension, high cholesterol, smoking, diabetes, physical inactivity, and obesity. But for women, there are some unique risk factors that I want to talk about. And one of it is hormonal changes. Now, women have a hormone called estrogen, and that is a wonderful hormone for women because it actually gives women a protective benefits for the cardiovascular system. It protects the heart and it protects the blood vessel. But as women get to menopause, that estrogen level decrease. And once that estrogen level decrease, of course, that protective benefit is gone. And therefore, women then become more at risk then for developing cardiovascular disease. It is said that pregnancy-related conditions such as preeclampsia and gestational diabetes can also increase long-term risk for heart disease. Why? Because these persons that have these type of complications, usually as they grow older in age, develop these symptoms. So yes, they might never had high blood pressure or diabetes, but they go through pregnancy, they have diabetes, or they might have the condition preeclampsia, which is a dangerously high blood pressure that can cause damage to the kidneys. And then sometimes when they get the baby, everything settles, but then later down in life, they are at risk now for developing these complications, which are risk factors for heart disease. Mental health also, such as depression and stress, are also commonly linked to heart disease because it increases the inflammation with the body, which affects the blood vessels and cause the blood vessels to be susceptible to develop plaque formation, which can narrow the blood vessel, there leading a disrupted supply of blood to the different organs or to the heart more so. Right. And of course, when we're depressed and stressed out, we adopt unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy lifestyles. When persons are stressed out, some people go and drink. When persons are stressed out, nobody will want to exercise. They might eat a lot of ice cream and chocolate. You know, when you're depressed, you want to eat a lot of sweet foods. And in the end, it is detrimental to your heart. So what we as women need to know, what do we need to share about our heart? One, we must have regular checkups. Women should advocate for regular cardiovascular screening and discuss their heart health with their doctors, especially after menopause or pregnancy complication, right? Sometimes we go through and we're feeling good and stuff, you know, and we don't have checkups. I've spoken to some women that have not even gone and get a checkup for the whole year and do not take their blood pressure. In fact, they don't want to know about their blood pressure. They don't want to know about how their cholesterol levels, because there's a saying that says, what you do not know cannot hurt you, but that saying is not true when it comes to diseases like heart attacks and stuff like that. What you know can save you, right? So one, you should know your numbers. Keep track of cholesterol, keep track of your blood sugar numbers, keep track of your blood pressure numbers, right? We have a lot of numbers that we are associated with as numbers. We have the children's cell phone numbers, we have our husband or our boyfriend numbers, we have the credit card numbers, the PIN numbers, but well, also we should add to that are these numbers, the cholesterol numbers, the blood pressure numbers, the blood sugar numbers, especially if we have family history. We need to know what's going on in our family. Do we have a mother that had diabetes? Did our father, did he had high blood pressure? These things are important because it shows us where we are at and what then we need to do to ensure that we do not experience these NCDs. Again, we manage stress, and we hear a lot about stress these days because we are living a fast-paced life, and we need to actually learn at sometimes to slow it down a bit. Chronic stress can impact heart health, as I mentioned earlier, the impact it has on the blood vessels, and also the impact it has on us adopting unhealthy behaviors. So it is crucial for us to really focus and actually targets mental health and stress management techniques, such as some people meditate, some people go to the beach, listen to music, whatever helps you, you know, find some time within your day or within your week for you as women, because as women, we have so many roles to play. And because of that, sometimes we can become very stressed out. So you need to find some time to take care of yourselves. Look at Sarah at the beginning of the presentation. I shared Sarah's story. She was going all the time until her body said, you have to stop, right? Let us not stop because our body stops us, but let us stop because we see the need to rest and to take care of our body, more so our heart. When we look at prevention and lifestyle changes, adopting a healthy diet, which emphasizes a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. But I will not go there because we have a nutritionist who will give us more information. Exercise, we need to aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise each week. If you smoke, smoking is a significant risk factor for heart disease. It damages the blood vessel, and therefore we need to quit smoking and also maintain a healthy weight to reduce the risk of heart disease is also important. I just want to say small changes, big impact. I often say to my client, a mouse can eat an elephant. And they will say, how? Oh, Miss Aline. I say, a mouse can eat an elephant one bite at a time. So every time the mouse come and bite at the elephant, day by day, one day, that elephant is going to succumb, right, from the bites of that mouse, right? So sometimes we look at the big ways in which we can change, but all we have to do is to start small and make consistent changes, and then we will see the big impact. A small change we can make, like swapping your soda for water and feeling like a superwoman, right? So instead of drinking sodas, instead of drinking juices, those who like to drink, just that simple change can make a big impact on your cardiovascular health. So taking care of your heart is one of the best things you can do for your health. So let's make cardiovascular health a priority today. And that is it for my presentation. I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Valerie, for that informative presentation. There's quite a few things that popped in there for me, definitely. I didn't know before, regards to the fainting and indigestion as being a sign of potential or possible heart failure. And I heard loud and clear about taking control of our health, for sure. That came out, that really resonated. And also when you said about making sure we know our numbers, we know everybody else's numbers, the husband, the partner, the children, we know everybody's numbers and blood type and everything else, but do we know our own numbers? And I think that what came to mind was, when you're on an airplane and they say to you, they go through the health and the safety format, and they tell you to put the mask on yourself first and then help whoever's with you. So I think that is basically what you're saying is that we need to look at ourselves as well if we're going to be helping other people as well. So thank you for that. So ladies and gents in the room as well, I know there's some gentlemen here, the ladies in your lives, make sure they take control of their health and make sure they know their numbers as well. So thank you for that. So again, just to remind, if you do have any questions or comments, just put them in the chat and we will get to those at the end. So thank you very much, Valerie, again, for that presentation. So we're going to move on to our second presenter for this evening, Ms. Sarah Stennett. Ms. Stennett is the charge nurse for the Early Detection Clinic at the Barbados Cancer Society. Ms. Stennett completed her nursing degree at Kingston University, London in 2015, and she's been a registered nurse in the UK since then and became a registered nurse in Barbados in 2020. She has worked in a variety of settings, including primary, secondary care, and specialised in the treatment of hepatitis C. She's passionate about women's health and is a strong advocate for raising awareness and preventative care. So please welcome Ms. Stennett as she comes to her presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me nice and clearly. Thank you to Miss Colleen Hunt for having me and the rest of the team. So I'm just going to share my presentation and now presenting on cervical cancer. Okay, I'm just gonna. Okay, so cervical cancer, or what do we know about cervical cancer? Ooh. Okay, so are the rumors true? There's a lot of misconceptions about cervical cancer, and I hope after this presentation that we can clear or clarify, affirm, or some of these rumors. So some of these rumors may be you only get cervical cancer if you've had sex with a lot of people. Cervical cancer is an older woman's problem. Having safe sex using a condom protects against cervical cancer. You need to be waxed or shaved to have a pap smear. Okay, so what is cervical cancer? So the cervix, so the cervix is part of the reproductive system and is the lower part of the womb and joins the top part of the vagina, and it is sometimes called the neck of the womb. So if you can just see it's highlighted in yellow here. So cervical cancer develops very slowly. We're talking about 10 to 15 years on average to develop, and it stems from abnormal cell changes in the cervix. Okay, cervical cancer is actually one of the cancers that is preventable and if found early, treatable. So what are some of the symptoms of cervical cancer? So abnormal bleeding, that can include bleeding during sex, after sex, in between periods, if your periods are longer or heavier than usual, anything that is abnormal to you. And I'd also say postmenopausal bleeding or spotting. So if you haven't had a period for a full year, anything after a full year of no periods is abnormal. If there's a slight spot, that should also be investigated. Changes to your discharge, does your discharge have any color to it? Is there more discharge than usual? Is there an odor? Lower unexplained back or pelvic pain, pain during sex. Now, having some of these symptoms doesn't mean you're going to get cervical cancer or have cervical cancer. In most cases, it's not, but it's still worth getting checked out. Okay, so who can get cervical cancer? And the simple answer is anyone with a cervix. According to the American Cancer Society, it's most frequently diagnosed in women aged 35 to 44. So actually the conception or the idea that it actually affects elder women actually is not true. It's mostly found in younger women. And when I say younger women, I mean aged between 30 and 40. That's not to say that women over 60 can't get cervical cancer. They can, but it's more common in this age bracket. So cervical cancer in the world, it's the fourth most common cancer in women across the world. Screenings and programs and treatments varies across the world. And you'll see in the next coming slides that you'll see that in low-income countries, the rate of cervical cancer is a lot higher in comparison to high-income countries such as America. So you'll see in Latin America and African countries that are designated low-income countries, they'll have a higher rate of cervical cancer. And again, with the mortality from cervical cancer, you'll see that it's at higher rates in low economical countries. When we're looking at the HPV vaccine, again, in high-income countries, they have a great HPV vaccine rollout in comparison to low-income countries. And again, for national screening programs in high-income countries, you're going to have a great cervical cancer screening programs across the countries compared to the low-income countries. So what about cervical cancer in Barbados? Barbados, despite its potholes, is actually a middle-income country. And cervical cancer is the seventh most common cancer in Barbados. In 2022, which is the last stats for this country, there was 36 new cases diagnosed. I would just say from a personal note, I've probably seen in the last 3 years, I've probably come across 3 patients with cervical cancer at the clinic. It is the third most common cause of death from cancer in females in Barbados. So when you're looking at cancer deaths in Barbados, especially in females, so the top one, it'll be breast cancer, then it'll be colon cancer, colorectal cancer, and then it'll be the cervical cancer. So what are the risk factors to getting cervical cancer? So human papillomavirus, also known as HPV, which I'll talk about in a minute. Smoking, there's been a direct link between smoking and cervical cancer. A weak immune system. Now, this can include those who are on dialysis or those with HIV. So having HIV doesn't mean you're going to get cervical cancer. It does mean, however, that you're at a higher risk of developing cervical cancer. That is because you have a slightly weaker immune system and unable to fight HPV. So if you look here, so they're 6 times more likely to develop cervical cancer than those who don't have HIV and at a younger age too. So what is HPV? HPV is a human papillomavirus. It is very, very common. About 8 out of 10 people get at some point in their lifetime. There are lots of strains of HPV. Not all the strains will cause cervical cancer, but the high-risk strains that we know of, so strains 16 and 18, can cause cervical cancer. And about 98% of cervical cancers, 98% of all cervical cancer cases is caused by the HPV infection. Now, that can sound scary, but with HPV, there are no symptoms and there's no treatment either. And again, that might shock some people, but actually your body can naturally fight it off by itself and clear it over time. So yeah, you might not never know you have it because there's no symptoms. But the HPV can cause some cells in your cervix to become abnormal. So how do you get HPV? Yes, it's technically classified as an STD, but as I said, it's very, very common. You don't need to have penetrative sex to catch HPV. It can be passed through skin-to-skin contact. So if you're close, laying down with someone, not having sex, you can still catch HPV. So yes, condoms can help prevent it. It doesn't actually give you full protection against HPV. As I said, HPV is very, very common. Most of us get it at some point in our lifetime, and most of us will clear it up without ever knowing we've had it. So what are some of the things that we can do to prevent cervical cancer? So the number one thing is actually the HPV vaccine and sexual health education. So the HPV vaccine is designed to give you protection from the high risk strains of HPV. It's available from the age of 9 through the age of 20. The reason being is that the assumption is that they haven't been sexually active during that age, so you can get full protection from the HPV vaccine. In Barbados, it's usually offered at the 11+ stage, but one of those vaccines. It's not mandatory in Barbados. You do need consent from a guardian or from a parent to have it. I know there's a lot of misconception about HPV, and some parents and guardians may be hesitant or reluctant. And I would always encourage you, if you are, just ask your questions. It doesn't harm to ask questions and find out. It does not mean that your child is sexually active. It doesn't mean that you're encouraging your child to have sex. It just means that when they are ready to have sex, they'll be protected against HPV. It is available for both boys and girls. So again, if it's passed through sexually, you have to vaccinate both girls and boys. And there's evidence to show that HPV in boys can cause cancer in the penis and cancer in anal cancer. It is available at the polyclinics in Barbados free of charge. So if you are over the age of 20 and you're still wanting to get the HPV vaccine, you'd have to go through your private GP and talk to them. It is licensed up to the age of 25, 27 for most people, but again, you'd have to talk to your private GP. At the polyclinics, it's at 11+. It's usually just a single dose or 2 doses. As with any vaccinations or injections, you may get some swelling at the injection site, and you may get a slight fever afterwards. So a 2021 study looked at the rates of cervical cancer before and since the introduction of HPV immunization program. It showed that among women vaccinated at the age of 12 to 13, rates of cervical cancer were reduced almost tenfold with 87% lower rates. So we know the HPV vaccine works. It's about encouraging people to get it. So if you can't get the HPV vaccine, then what? Cervical screening, this is so important, and identifying and treating abnormal cells within a timely manner. So what is cervical screening and why is it so important? So screening can prevent cervical cancers because we can find the abnormal cells and they be treated before they become cervical cancer. So you may hear, or if you look up, you may hear the words precancerous cells, or you may hear the word abnormal cells. There's a debate about the terminology. That's because precancer can sound really scary. So if I told you got precancerous cells, you might think, oh my goodness, I'm going to get cancer, or do I have cancer? It can be really worrying to a patient. So the word abnormal cells is more used now. That is because abnormal cells doesn't mean cancerous cells. If they are left unchecked, untreated for a long period of time, they could become cancerous cells, which is why Pap smears are so important, because we can find the abnormal cells, we can treat it, and therefore prevent cervical cancer. So what tests are there? So there's two different types of tests. So you may be familiar with the Pap smear or the Pap test, and this is looking at the cells from your cervix, and it goes to the lab, and this is looking for any abnormal cells in the cervix. The HPV test is a test looking for the infection for the HPV virus. So the HPV test won't necessarily tell you if you have any abnormal cells, but it would tell you if you do have the HPV virus. Again, the Pap smear won't necessarily tell you if you have the HPV, but it will tell you if you have any abnormal cells in your cervix. So how is the test done? Unfortunately, it's not a blood test or a urine sample. Unfortunately, us women have to go through some real trouble having some tests, but I tell you, it is worth it. So the nurse or doctor will insert the speculum into your vagina. That part, I always say to patients, it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but I have more on that later. If we will open up slowly so we can see the cervix, and then we'll take a small brush, just take a small sample from your cervix. The actual test, so the actual swabbing, usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes. It's very, very quick. And that's what it is. And that's the same way we do for HPV and for the Pap smear. So we do the same swabbing for both HPV and for the Pap smear. So a Pap smear doesn't tell you about your fertility. It's not a test for STIs. It's not going to tell you about any other gynecological issues like polycystic ovary syndrome. And it's not a test for ovarian cancer. It is solely looking at the cervix. So how can we make your appointment more comfortable for you? You can bring someone with you or ask for a chaperone in the room. You can also ask for a female doctor or nurse to do your Pap smear. Listen to music or use your phone, that's no problem. You can ask to change position. We usually do it when you're laid on your back, you can open your legs. If you find it uncomfortable, we can do a different position for you. And this one is really important. You can ask to stop at any point. If at any point you find it's too uncomfortable, please let us know and we will stop. Again, you can ask to use the smallest size speculum to be used. For some of you in the older generation, you may be used to having the metal speculum. That thing is cold, it's big, and it pinches. It is not pleasant. But now there are different size speculums, and they're plastic. I find the plastic ones are a lot more comfortable. And we always use the smallest size to begin with, and we do use a lubricant on top. Again, always ask questions at your appointment. I can't stress to you this enough. If you're having any concerns or worries, even if we don't know the answers, we'll come back to you. At the end of the day, it's your health, it's your body. If you're going to go home stressed and worried, please don't ask questions so we can try and help you. So how often should you have your Pap smear or cervical cancer screening done? Oh, sorry, just to go back a little bit. So a Pap smear isn't actually a test for cervical cancer. It's not going to tell you, yes, you have cervical cancer, or no, you don't have cervical cancer. It is just a test to see if you have any abnormal cells for cervical cancer. Okay, oh, how do I go forward? Okay, so how often should you have it done? So according to American Cancer Society, in America, it starts at 25, but in Barbados here, we start at 21. So from the age of 21 to 25, you should have a Pap smear done every 3 years. From the age of 25, you can then start having your HPV tests and Pap smear. So you can have them both together, and that can be done every 3 to 5 years. And we're going up to the age of 65. If you don't want to have the HPV test, then definitely do the Pap smear every 3 years. So in Barbados at the moment, we've saw the focus is Pap smears, but we're shifting towards a HPV testing. So if you look at high income countries like America and the UK, they mainly do HPV testing as opposed to Pap smears. So in Barbados, we still do both. We do Pap smears and HPV testing. I said it's every co-test. It's done on the same sample. It's not 2 separate tests. You can do it on the same swab. So every 3 to 5 years from the age of 25 upwards, or they were starting at 21 in Barbados, up to the age of 65. This may change depending on your pap smear results or your medical history. So for example, some with HIV, we may do the pap smears more frequently. So what happens if you've had a total hysterectomy or surgery to remove your womb? If they've taken out your cervix and your hysterectomy was for non-cancerous reasons, so that if you had fibroids or heavy bleeding, you won't need to have any more pap smears going forward. If you've had a total hysterectomy for cancerous reasons, you will still need to have a pap smear. If you've had a partial hysterectomy, so they may have taken an ovary out, they may have taken something else out, but they've left back in the cervix, you will still need to have a pap smears. And I know with patients, they forget which one they've had. If you're unsure, just come in and we can examine you and then we can tell you if you left back in your cervix. Okay, so if at the age of 65, you've been having your pap smear done on a regular basis and they've always been coming back good, no issues, you can stop at 65. If on your 65th birthday and you realize, oh, I haven't had a pap smear in the last 20 years, please do come forward for a pap smear. If you've 65, actually, you've had a history of some abnormal cells, please do come forward and still have your pap smears and we can review you. Okay. I should really say, okay, so before we go back here, I'm just going to go back, sorry, about the pap smears. I do pap smears all day, every day. I've had pap smears done on myself, obviously as a lady. And one thing I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if you're waxed, shaved, hairy, it does not matter. Once you've seen a vagina, you've seen them all. For the nurse and doctor, we're not looking at that. We don't care about that. It's more about your cervical health. It doesn't affect the results at all. And again, even make it more comfortable, you can ask for a gown. I know it can be quite embarrassing to be exposed. You can feel quite vulnerable. You can ask for a gown to cover up. Okay, so understanding your results. So this part is really important. People assume that no news is good news. Well, I didn't hear back from so-and-so, so it must be all good. I always tell patients, please, 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 if you haven't got your results, call back and find out your results. Sometimes there can be an admin error. Sometimes it happens, your results can fall through the crack. It doesn't mean it's good news, so please call back and for your results. So what happens when you get back your results? So no abnormal cells were found and you were negative for HPV. You can continue with the routine screening, which is every 3 to 5 years. No abnormal cells, but they found out that you've got HPV. Then we'd advise you to repeat the pap smear on a yearly basis until the HPV clears up. So some abnormal cells were detected positive for HPV. We're going to refer you to colposcopy. So colposcopy is just a clinic that specializes in the cervix and will look at your cervix in greater detail. Abnormal cells detected and negative for HPV, we're still going to refer you to colposcopy for further examinations. So it's important to say that actually most abnormal cells can revert by themselves. So that means you won't need treatment for the abnormal cells. Your body will naturally heal it by itself. But for some type of abnormal cells, you may need treatment. Treatment at colposcopy may be a freezing done or something like that, but that's an outpatient appointment. So I know that when I personally had an abnormal pap smear, I panicked. I was like, oh my goodness, does it mean I have cancer? Does it mean, can I have kids? All those things can run through your head. It's normal and that's fine. So as I said, abnormal cells does not mean cancerous cells. It just means we found some abnormalities. Actually, and as I said, it can usually clear up by itself, or sometimes it may need treatment. It's always good that we find these things early so that we can find it and we can treat it and therefore prevent cervical cancer, okay? Sometimes the pap smear may pick up a yeast or a minor bacterial infection. That's fine, that's normal. That does not mean you have any, that doesn't mean you've got an abnormal pap smear. It just means they found some yeast or bacterial infections. Okay, so cancer and the future. So the World Health Organization plans to eliminate cervical cancer by 2030. Ambitious, yes, that's soon going to be here. So how they planning on doing that? So the aim is to get 90% of girls vaccinated with the HPV vaccine by the age of 15 across globally. 70% of women screened with HPV by the ages of 35 and 45. 90% of women with cervical cancer to receive treatment. Okay, some frequently asked questions that I get asked a lot. Can I have sex before a pap smear? Ideally, avoid it for 24 hours before having a pap smear. That's because sometimes it can cause some inflammation of your cervix, and that might obscure the results a little bit. Can I douche before having a pap smear? No, please, you can't. And that goes with any vaginal creams that you're inserting or any antibiotic cream that you're inserting, please don't before your pap smear. I've just finished my period. Can I have a pap smear? So you can have a pap smear at any stage once you're not bleeding. I know before you would say wait 10 days after your period before you can have a pap smear, but actually you can have it once you're not bleeding or spotting. If you've just finished your period, I would say give it a couple of days. Sometimes periods make a surprise spotting, just give a couple of days. So once you're not bleeding or spotting, you can have your pap smear. How soon can I have sex after a pap smear? Again, roughly about 24 hours, ideally. That's because sometimes after a pap smear, you may have some cramping or you may have slight bleeding. Can I have a pap smear whilst pregnant? Yes, pap smears are safe to have while you're pregnant, but it's best that you speak to your gynecologist or to your midwife as to whether you need it now or whether you can delay it until after you've given birth. And we usually say after you've given birth, it's normally 6 to 12 weeks after you've given birth to have the pap smear. Should I worry if I have bleeding after a pap smear? No, some bleeding and spotting is usual after a pap smear. It usually clears up within a day or two. Okay, so thank you for listening to my presentation. And as part of the give back, if you have a valid UE ID card, staff or student, you can receive $5 off at the Barbados Cancer Society from tomorrow until the end of April. And how can you contact us? We have a WhatsApp number, 255-9836. We're on Instagram, the Barbados Cancer Society. You can call us 436-8888. We're open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4 p.m. Come and visit us. We're at Henry's Lane, Cullen Rock, St. Michael. Or you can email us at info@barbadoscancersociety.com. Again, if you have questions, please do come in and call us or visit us, and we're happy to assist. Yeah, and that's it. So
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
thank you for listening. I'm sorry if I waffled or not speaking too fast, but yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Thank you very much indeed for that presentation. Again, lots of useful information, things that we may already know, but good to have a reminder. And again, thank you to the Barbados Cancer Society for the discount for our Barbados located students and staff. So there's no excuse, ladies. We get down there, book your appointment, take your ID, and get your 5% discount between now and the end of April. So yeah, again, lots of information. I've got some questions, so I'll wait to the question and answer. I hope people will have additional questions as well. So with no further ado, our final presenter, but by no means least, is Mrs. Kathleen Gooden. Kathleen is a nutritionist with 15 years of experience providing nutrition counseling to individuals and groups to Barbados and the USA. She is the founder of Good Step Wellness, a nutrition counseling service, and she's a full-time teacher of physical education and science. Kathleen is a nutrition dietary technician registered, NDTR, with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, excuse my tongue twister there, in the USA, and a registered nutritionist in Barbados. Equipped with a BSc in nutrition from South Carolina State University and a Master's of Public Health degree from the University of Derby in the UK. Her evidence-based approach to helping individuals and groups meet their nutrition goals. Kathleen has effectively worked with clients providing one-on-one counseling tailored to their unique situations, as well as facilitated nutrition presentations for sports clubs, church groups, and other organizations. As a nutrition professional, teacher, wife, mother, former collegiate volleyball player, and assistant coach, gosh, Kathleen, when do you have time? She knows that nutrition needs change throughout the stages of life, and meeting dietary goals has its challenges. She has dedicated her profession to helping others enjoy their journey to a healthier version of themselves while navigating life's ever-changing landscapes. So please welcome Mrs. Kathleen Gooden. Over to you, Kathleen.
Hello, good evening. We'll just share this screen with you. Yeah. Just making sure you guys are seeing the PowerPoint, right?
Yes, we can see it. It's great.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, on my screen here, there is a QR code as I introduce myself. If anybody can scan it, I have a little survey question here that I would like you guys to participate in. I can also place it in the chat. I can find the chat. Sorry. There it is. Okay, you can click right there so you can answer. All right. Sorry. Great. Good evening. I'm excited to be a part of this discussion this evening, accelerating the call to talk about women's health. My name is Kathleen. As Colleen introduced me as just now, I am a registered nutritionist here in Barbados. And I would like to talk to you about healthy lifestyles for women and by extension, children, as we focus in on women's health to continue this very important discussion. Okay. All right. I am going to move ahead with this question. The question, I'm not sure if people were able to get in on it, asked about whether you were aware of the recommendations for eating and exercise and whether you were able to practice them, if so. Okay, because some people, you know what to do, but you're not sure how to do it. And then there are others who not sure what to do. So my hope is that by the end of this discussion, that you have the necessary information and that those who are unsure will feel more confident in putting certain practices into place. And then the tips on improving nutrition and fitness will help those who already know, but needed that little jump start to go ahead and get active. So my apologies if the link wasn't working. All right. So I'm not going to rehash what my colleague who presented at first would have spoken about, but we do know that the NCD, the non-communicable disease problem, is very serious right here for us in the Caribbean. It's around the world, and we feel its impacts here. In women, it is a major concern. Along with being responsible for the majority of deaths in women, many NCDs have their origins in childhood. So children's poor lifestyle habits predispose them to becoming unhealthy adults. In the Caribbean, we know that the four major ones that we spoke about earlier are diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular diseases. That was the main point of that first presentation, and then chronic respiratory illnesses. Our lifestyle has a direct impact on the risk of dying from an NCD. It includes things like tobacco smoking, alcohol intake, and our focus today, diet and level of physical activity, along with being overweight or obese. So for women and children here in the Caribbean, obesity is a major risk factor and a driver for non-communicable diseases. Compared to men, women are twice as likely to be obese. In Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominica, there was a CARICOM survey that was carried out, and we are among the top 14 countries in global female obesity. Children are increasingly at risk of developing NCDs. Childhood obesity exceeds 10% in many of the CARICOM countries. Physical activity in women is significantly higher. Sorry, physical inactivity, not doing anything much, is significantly higher in women than in men. So in Barbados, 9 out of 10 women do not meet the WHO, World Health Organization, their recommendations for physical activity, right? Whereas it's 6 out of 10 in men. Studies indicate that in CARICOM member states, less than a third of the school-age children aged 13 to 15 get the recommended level of physical activity. The obesity in the Caribbean here is being driven in part by the increased availability of high-fat, high-sugar fast foods and sugar-sweetened beverages, as well as low fruit and vegetable intake overall. That's both genders, all age groups, low fruit and vegetable intake. More than 85% of adults in CARICOM member states do not meet the recommended levels of fruit and vegetable intake. So we know that there's a role that obesity and being overweight plays in deaths in our region. So these two charts here, they show the statistics for obesity and overweight from 2000 to 2015, with projected increases all the way up to 2020. For both men and women, we see women in the orange on this chart and men are in the blue. Although both genders increased steadily, women already had higher rates of obesity and being overweight. Okay. And as we spoke about, overweight and obesity is a major factor in these non-communicable diseases. Okay. And what is driving that obesity and overweight? The region where we live is experiencing a nutrition transition where we're shifting diets away from the staples like cereals and starchy roots and fruits and the tubers, and locally grown fruits and vegetables and legumes to diets that are more processed with excessive amounts of added sugars and fats and oils and sodium and often more alcohol. Okay, these trends start in childhood and they continue into adulthood. So in summary, for those, the data I've just presented, overweight and obesity result from imbalances in diet and physical activity. Okay, and that brings us to where we are today. I'm going to look at some of the benefits of getting better nutrition. We already know, of course, that it will help us with this NCD crisis that we are facing. Okay. But the other benefits include improved energy levels. Like who doesn't want more energy? Okay. Keeping skin and teeth and eyes healthy, supporting muscle growth, boosting immunity, all things very important, especially for our children. Okay. Strengthening bones, supporting healthy pregnancies and breastfeeding, helping the digestive system to function, and then promoting cognitive development in children. Okay, so nutrition benefits, we think a lot about weight loss and stuff like that, but in every aspect of our lives, proper nutrition is essential. In terms of getting active, exercise for women and children. There's so many great benefits. One of the things that I like to highlight is that exercise is not only about weight loss. When you start to exercise without losing any weight yet, you've already began to lower your blood pressure. We've already began to change our cholesterol levels and stuff like that. Okay. So, and how our bodies use glucose, sugar, linked to diabetes, right? So from the time we start to exercise, our body starts to get healthy. We may not see it in the mirror, or trying on our clothes, but being active, it helps us from the time we begin. Okay, so along with preventing, non-communicable diseases, we're talking about benefits such as improved blood flow and lower blood pressure, maintaining bone strength, and delaying osteoporosis, which is it affects older adults, so older women have to look out for this as well. Okay, and has a significant health benefits for our heart, bodies, minds, and ensures healthy growth and development from young people, reduces the symptoms of depression and anxiety. And we know that in our society, especially here in Barbados, we've been hearing about a lot of suicides and different things. And if getting active can help to reduce this, well, why not? Okay, boost your thinking and learning and judgment skills. Okay, and children are more likely to become active adults if they're active as children. Okay, so again, we do have to encourage our children to increase their activity level as well, okay, as increasing ours. All right, so with all this information, what now? How do we put this into practice? So we're going to take a look at a balanced diet, highlighting the nutrients that women and children need to pay attention to, and then offer some tips on incorporating healthy eating into our lives. After that, in terms of physical activity, we'll explore the recommendations for adequate exercise and ways to increase physical activity. Okay? So now let's look at the essential components of nutrition and exercise for women and children in the Caribbean. So in terms of overweight and obesity, for women, our waist circumference has to be less than 35 inches. I start here because we hear a lot about BMI, which I'm going to look at in a second. So BMI, our body mass index, is a predictor of, it puts us in a particular category of weight. So we could be classified as being underweight, normal weight, overweight, or obese based on our BMI. However, BMI tends to, depending on how much muscle we have and different things, it can over or underestimate fat. But waist circumference measurement is an independent predictor for several NCDs as well. Okay. So for women, we trying to get active on everything, but we really want to make sure that our waist circumference is around those 35 inches. So if in any way we are not within what we're supposed to be, we just, not that we have to get there. Well, my waist is 50, I'm going to die. No, it's not that. It is just knowing where you're at, and therefore you do have to do something, because we would say, oh, I'm good, I don't have to do anything, my clothes fit, etc. But using these indicators helps us to put ourselves in the best position in order to be healthy as we continue on in adulthood and hopefully live long productive lives. Okay. So waist circumference, again, measuring it that we want to be less than 35 inches, and our BMI. So for those who've never done BMI, you could just go online, you put in your numbers and stuff, and it gives you an indication. This chart right here, if you know your height and your weight, you can look on the left side of the chart and you're going down, you find your height, and then you're looking at your weight and you're coming down. And if the numbers where they meet, if they meet in the blue, you'll be underweight. In the green, you'll be at normal weight. The yellow, you're overweight. Orange, we're getting into obesity. And then in the red, we're getting into the obesity class 1 and class 2, etc. Okay. Again, this is just knowing your status. Knowing does not hurt. Okay. Knowing your status and putting these things into place to try to help us, to determine what we have to do next. So let's say we know where we're at. We're overweight or obese or whatever at this point. Okay. Now, or we're normal. So what do? We have to monitoring weight gain. So if we are good, we're in the right position, that is fine. But we know that things change over time. Many of us, we could look back at a high school picture or something and we're like, I wish I could get back there. We don't have to be back there, right? But definitely we might not be where we were then, okay? But it's not about trying to get to a particular weight for how it looked. But monitoring where we're at right now, it tells us, oh, wait, I think I've increased about 5 pounds since last year. And, there's been this ongoing thing. I have to do something about it. Okay. So annual checkups, which one of my colleagues would have mentioned, we stay away from them for different reasons. Knowing doesn't hurt. Not knowing hurts more than knowing. Okay. So you don't have to go to the doctor's away, but you will get your blood sugar checked, your cholesterol, etc. And then because the doctor keeps those tabs on you, then you would, even if you weren't noticing it on your own, you would see, well, hey, I've been gaining some weight, etc. Or my waist has been increasing, over the past few years. I have to start to do something. Okay, be aware of how your body is changing. Now, if you are classified as overweight or obese, or you've only been gaining weight, then okay, we have to look at weight loss. How? Gradual. Okay. You don't have to go and jump on one of those, lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks. I've had people come to me, I have a wedding, in June. What can you do? I said, absolutely nothing. Right. We talk about gradual weight loss. Okay, 1 to 2 pounds a week. We took our time to get, where we're at. We can take our time, to give ourselves a chance to get it right back off to where it's supposed to be. Okay, so those of us classified as obese or overweight, depending on how much weight we have to lose, whether it's 10 pounds or 20, 6 months. Might seem like a long time, but gradual changes, okay, and taking it slowly, we can get there. And if we do it the right way, we'll be able to maintain that, okay, along with the benefits that come along with it. All right. So how do we find our balance? So if you have to lose weight, gain weight, or just maintain weight, we have to ensure that our calories in are in the right ratio compared to the calories, the energy that we burn, what we use. Okay. But it's not simply, I ate this much, I have to work out this much. Okay. Disease states, wound healing, and other factors play a role in how our bodies use energy. Okay. But in a broad sense, eating more than we should or being less physically active than we ought to can put us at risk for overweight and obesity and the associated diseases. So first up, in finding our balance, we'll address nutrition, right? So the important recommendations for women and children, there are several, okay? But let's look at these ones here that, kind of stand out for us in terms of things that we need to start doing. A balanced diet, every age, every stage from childhood to adulthood, making sure that we are getting our nutrients from various sources and, we're not sticking on like one particular food based on tradition, etc., and not knowing, okay? Because then we're lacking nutrients that we need otherwise. consuming 5 servings, vegetables and fruits, okay, not 5 of each, but 5 altogether, as increasing our intake. By the way, almost no one worldwide, actually, like less than 10% in the world can actually make this happen, okay? But it's a goal that we need to try to go toward. So some of us need to move from eating no fruits and vegetables to eating some, from eating some to eating a little bit more, okay? Less than 30% of our daily intake should come from fat. And when we look at the meal planning and we look at the food groups, and we'll see, just from planning a normal meal, we can ensure that we're choosing the better options so that we can limit the fats in our diet. Okay. We want to have free sugars, less than 10% for both adults and children. That's the added sugar, the donuts and the sweetened snacks, the sugar sweetened drinks. Way too much sugar. Okay. We don't have to have that whole bottle of Sprite or whatever. Okay. So, you expect me to say don't have any, right? But you have that little sweet tooth, pour a little bit, have that at the end or something, but not to have the entire bottle, so tips like that. And then less than 5 grams of salt daily. Okay, ideally about 2,500 milligrams, 2.5 grams of salt. So just don't add salt because things already have it in. Okay, and in terms of very young children, infants, breastfeeding for the first 6 months. Okay, these are the main recommendations. In terms of breastfeeding, your breast milk is the best thing for a child. So unless it's something that is medically impossible to do, we really encourage that children be breastfed. It fosters healthy growth, their cognitive development. It has long-term health benefits, such as reducing the risk of becoming obese and overweight later on in life. Okay, but it hurts. It hurts. It is very uncomfortable. We have all kinds of issues and, wetting the shirts and all that kind of stuff. But there are support groups, your family and stuff that would have been through it. So if possible, right, we really want to encourage that babies get that nutrition early on in life. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the key nutrients that women and children need. So along with focusing on mixing the food groups for adequate intake of nutrients, we need to ensure enough of each of these nutrients are obtained in the diet. So things like calcium, which we know, and vitamin D, which go hand in hand for bone health. Women are prone to osteoporosis, okay? So for women, we need to make sure that we are taking in those foods like fish and for our diet, we have to have fortified products, the ones that have added calcium, okay? So that we can maintain our bones so that later on in life, because as we get older and the bones get weaker, to prevent osteoporosis from happening, we want to ensure that we're getting adequate levels of calcium. For fiber, right, about 25 grams a day, another marker that we fall short of, okay? But it's just adding it into every meal, choosing whole grains, eating fruits with the skin, and those kinds of things to just start to be more cognizant of what choices that we're making so that, we're getting more of it in our diet because it helps us to feel fuller after meals. And, if you feel full, that will stop you from overeating, right? It lowers cholesterol, prevents constipation and stuff. So it makes going to the bathroom a little bit easier, right? As long as you drink enough water, etc. If you're eating an actual high fiber diet, okay? And then lowering our blood sugar levels. Iron, we know that that's very important, especially in menstruating women, okay? So about 80 milligrams of iron a day. So things like the dark green leafy vegetables, well, not spinach so much. We really can't get a lot from it, but iron fortified cereals, meat, fish, beans. Okay, so and then along with iron, having enough vitamin C so that our bodies can actually absorb it. And I'm going kind of quickly, but let me take a pause. I don't I'm not teaching a nutrition course. I'm not teaching, we have to get this, that, and that. When we get to the tool that is recommended to be used for creating a balanced meal, that is designed to simplify this process to ensure that we are getting enough from each group so that our bodies have what it needs to work. Okay, I'm highlighting certain nutrients. So when we check for nutrition labels, etc., we are looking to see what it is that we're getting from those foods. Okay, so if I'm going fast, you're not supposed to take in all of these things. We're heading toward understanding what balance is, but just that these particular nutrients in women we have to pay attention to. So we had calcium, we have fiber, we spoke about iron because we lose blood during our menstruation, okay, especially during those years. And then for babies after about 6 months, they have to start getting it in foods as well as they're growing and the blood production and stuff is increasing. All right. And then folate, which is critical for women of childbearing age to prevent birth defects. And normally, part of the birth vitamins and stuff that you would have would include folate. So you can increase that in your increase your intake of it. But taking in foods like whole grains and green leafy vegetables and stuff would help with that. Okay. In children, protein, fundamental for growth and development. Remember that they're growing at an exponential rate. Okay. So you have to have adequate protein, iron again for help forming the blood in their body, calcium to support the growth of their bones, fiber for digestion. Okay, and then adequate vitamins and minerals from a variety of fruits and vegetables. Okay, so that was an overview. All right. So how do we create balanced meals? So some of us might be familiar with this, the My Plate. This is the US their tool that they use to explain, how to get enough from each food group. Now, every region has their own. Okay. We are from the Caribbean. Okay. So we use the Caribbean food groups, right? So this plate, this circle here can represent a plate. And the amounts, the sections for each food group kind of give you an idea of how much of each of these things you should have, especially like lunch and dinner, like your major meals, right? To ensure balance. So the staples would include things like, we'll go into what is in each group as we break it down a little bit more. But foods are grouped based on their nutrient content. So how we combine the fruits from different groups is key to obtaining a proper variety in our diet. So Caribbean food groups, we have staples, we have legumes, food from animals, fruits, vegetables, fats, and oils. So in terms of food from animals, right, this group is where we would get most of our protein from. Okay. So things like fish and poultry, eggs, contribute to our protein intake. We know that proteins are the building blocks for our body. Okay. Every cell from bone to skin and hair and muscle, they use protein for growth, health, and body maintenance. Okay. So this is where we get our proteins from. And then we go to our staples. From primary school, we were taught staples, right? And these are the rice and the ground provisions, crackers and bread and stuff like that. And within the staples group, we have like a breadfruit, etc. We're looking to get more of the whole grain choices from it. So the high fiber options, which are the ground provisions, the oats, the barley, grain, etc. But you see it does have in like rice, white rice, etc. But we want to make at least half of the grains that we intake whole grains. Okay, so going toward those brown provisions that already have their fiber within their content, right? And then brown rice and stuff like that, and oats, choosing the ones that will increase fiber in the diet. So while we're getting our energy from this group, because that's what the staples group does, it provides carbohydrates, right? Complex carbohydrates for energy, right? We are making sure that we get enough fiber. And then we get to legumes. So the legumes, these are fruit, legumes and nuts. These include beans and lentils, peanuts, peanut butter we will put in this group as well. And this group is unique because not only do we get um, some starch from it, some energy, we also get protein. So these complement our protein intake throughout the day, along with a host of important vitamins and minerals that we get from this group. So things like the beans and stuff, and eating your rice and peas and things like that, or adding beans to certain things, it can increase our micronutrient, the vitamin and mineral intake, okay, to help us meet our nutrition needs. Vegetables, we know what these are, but we focus on the non-starchy vegetables. Okay, so green and leafy vegetables, okra, the other different color. We got carrots, we got tomatoes, these are our vegetables where we get the different colors. We just try to get a variety so that we are ensuring again that we get the adequate amount of nutrients from each. Okay, fruits, we're looking at our locally grown fruits, eat what's in season. If you like it. Okay, so we know what fruits are, and then fats and oils, which we do need healthy fats, in our diet, okay? A lot of the Caribbean food and stuff may contain saturated fats because, a lot of our meals start with butter. You got to have that stick of butter, okay? Melt it down and, begin your sauces, etc. Okay, so saturated fat is the one that we really want to come away from, choosing more of the oils, right? Vegetable oils and stuff, okay? And making sure that we get the regular enough servings from each group is what we're going to move on to in a minute. So in terms of how we put uh, these recommendations, into practice. So we saw that we have the 6 food groups. Okay. So what we can do daily, just to make sure that we're getting enough from each group, we can look at how to mix them. So the suggestions for mixing, we have a 2 mix, 3 mix, and a 4 mix. And I like these options because once you're getting, as I said, you're choosing the high fiber, options from the staples menu. You're choosing the healthier options from the food from animals menu, right? And we're putting those together. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to go and buy Ezekiel bread and salmon and all these different things. Okay, plantains, in season and stuff. We can have fish, whatever cut of fish you like and what is affordable. Meat. If you're not having meat at the time, and if you're vegetarian, you can still have your proteins from the legumes group. So we're just going to take a look at what these mixes mean. Okay. So a 2 mix using 2 of the food groups, right, which is a cereal or a grain from the staples group plus legumes or animal foods. Okay. So when you pair a cereal grain with legumes, they form a complete protein. All right. So we're going to get the complete protein that we need, have all the essential amino acids and everything in there. So again, just from having one of each food groups, we're already meeting that. You don't have to study and know and understand what everything in there is, but we're taking from, these 2 groups, and that gives us the best chance of having the nutrients that we need. Okay. So again, simply something from the staples group that you prefer. So if it's breakfast and you're going to have some plantain and then you're going to boil some eggs, right? Or scramble with a little bit of oil or so, you're going to have your animal group and your staples group there included. Okay, a 3 mix now is when we add a non-starchy vegetables into what we were having. So you could have had the rice from the staples group, you have your beans, right? Or meat, beans from the legumes group, or if you were having meat, right? And then vegetables. So you could steam some carrots, you could stir fry some bok choy or anything like that and have that in the mix. Okay. And then when we get to the 4 mix, we're talking about the like Sunday lunch. Okay, when you have some of everything available, you have your staples, your legumes, food from animals, and your vegetables. Okay, this is like something that we wouldn't have all the time, but again, we can obtain the nutrients and stuff that we need from the 2 mix or the 3 mix. It depends on your budget, it depends on the time that you have available. But again, we're just choosing from each of the food groups. We start with the staples group, and then we either add legumes or any food from animals, right? Whatever our choice is, and we go for the healthier choices. So when I speak of that, I'm talking things like in the animal group. Let me just go back to the previous slide. We see that, sorry. Oops. Food from animals, right? So here we have things like sardines, we have eggs, right? We have beef, we have chicken, we have fish, we have corned beef, right? So choosing the lean meats, fish, chicken breasts, if possible, stuff like that. We're boiling the eggs and stuff, so we can choose from that end. When we get to the higher fat options, cheese, you can still get protein from cheese. We want to limit cheese in the diet. We want to limit the processed meats like hot dogs and pepperoni and those kind of things, right? But sardines, they have very, very good fats in there for us. Okay, so we're choosing the ones that best suit us, but we're just looking at balancing overall. Okay. Do I have to go through? Sorry. Right. All right. This is just an overview of calories, right? When we start with our meal planning or whatnot, and we're choosing these foods, we all already have an idea about how much we need, how much we like to eat. And if looking at our BMI earlier and our waist circumference gave us any tips or anything that we need to lose some weight, we have to cut back a little bit. So these calorie needs are just a guideline. Okay. So for women, depending on, and we can see that it all depends on how active we are. So if you're between 30 to 51 years old and you don't do much activity at all, right? 1,800 calories is the recommended calorie needs. And most things will tell you when you look at nutrition labels, which you'll take a brief look at, they start at a 2,000 calorie diet, which is more than what we need to take in. Okay. So when I look at the serving sizes and stuff like that, you would have a better idea of what. But again, it comes from what you know about what you eat. Okay. Growing children, young kids need less calories, but as they get older, in the adolescent years, right, they will tend to need more than us women. So when your children are like, Mommy, I'm hungry or whatever, that you always eating and stuff, but they are more active, their bodies are growing, right? And all the changes that they're going through. So they would need more energy. So calories is energy. Okay. And it is just telling us that, different stages in life, you would need more than others. Okay. All right. So how does this translate into the number of servings that we're supposed to have? So at the lower end for calorie needs, we start with the lower end of servings. So for women, we need, let's say the 1,800 calorie diet, 16 to 1,800. So from the staples group, we're looking at 4 or more servings. So at the bottom here, we use our hands. Okay, we're trying to estimate how much we need. All right. So to have a serving of staples for us could be about this much rice, okay? And that would be like 2 regular serving sizes. But for this portion of rice, we can have that in a meal, okay? When we're looking at food from animals, um, we're using the palm of our hand. That's about 2 to 3 ounces of meat, okay? So if it can fit here, not piled all the way up like a chicken thigh or a steak of fish, etc. Okay, so just looking to see how many servings that we would need throughout the day. All right. So this is throughout the day. You're choosing 4 or more, and you can have spread out throughout the day for staples, legumes, and food from animals. We can split those up, just to make sure that we're getting it. We're not going to have it all at one time. And it's important to spread it throughout the day because things like insulin resistance, if we're having all of the starch and all the carbohydrates, eating one meal a day, it overloads our system. Okay, so to keeping the carbohydrates constant is something that diabetics have to do. And it's also recommended in our regular diet so that we don't overload our system. So a balanced diet, we're eating 3 to 5 times a day. Okay, and we're having those snacks in between where you have one fruit or have some crackers and peanut butter or a piece of cheese or something like that, or even if you're having cookies, have a couple of cookies, but all within reason. We can include those in our servings depending on how many servings we're having. So when we see 4 or more, 2 or more, it depends on what, you start at the level that you're comfortable with, right? And if you need to have less, again, these are things that you can work on with a nutritionist, but just at home and you're thinking, all right, I can do this, right? I know my body and I have to cut down. You will know, okay, well, I will have, I can have 3 servings instead of 4, I will have less of this instead of that. Okay. But just to be able to choose so we can get all the right nutrients coming in and balance, what we're eating. Okay. So for children, we see that they're 4 or less. Okay. So we're coming down to like either 3 or 2, and their portion is their hand, not yours. Okay. So that's what you're estimating. So if you're trying to figure out what to feed your 2 or 3-year-old and stuff, and you're introducing them to the vegetables and stuff like that, because they eat with us. That's, we see that families who have obese parents normally have children the same way because they eat the same, right? So they're eating the same food, but we're giving them that amount, that portion that we're giving to them, we're ensuring that it's enough for them. Okay, so we use their hand instead. So the second, at the bottom there, the second hand diagram shows, your hand versus theirs. That's how you estimate servings for children. Okay, just gonna take a very quick look at the nutrition facts label. People skim over this, but I think that in recent years, we have gotten a lot better at actually looking to see what it is that we're taking in. we're looking for serving sizes. Normally here in the Caribbean, you can buy snacks because snacks is the main thing that, we would pick up, that we check for the nutrition facts, right? Snacks or juices, etc. And you see the serving size that is on there. The serving size is not necessarily the packet itself. That's one thing that tricked a lot of people before. Okay, you think, oh, I can eat this. I'm just eating some cookies. But a serving size might tell you get 280 calories from this, but there are 4 servings in here. You have to, if you're eating the entire packet, you have to multiply 280 by 4. All right. So let's say that your calorie needs for the day were at 1600 or 1800, and you were having, let's say this was a pack of cookies, and you were going to eat the entire packet, and it's almost 300 calories in per serving. 4 3s are 12, right? So you're already up past 1,000 calories, and you haven't eaten anything else. Okay. So taking a look at the serving size, knowing the servings per container and how many calories, it gives us a little idea, like you feel like snacking, but you pick up this snack and like, oh, 220, oh gosh, no, that's too much, right? And it makes you make a better choice, have popcorn, or if you're going to have it, right? Choose nuts or something you're also getting protein from or something like that. So you want to choose from one of the other food groups and not just a starch at that time or a high sugar choice. Okay, in terms of the nutrients that we're getting, we want to make sure that we're choosing the ones that have some dietary fiber. Myself, for women, we want 25 grams. So this one has 4 grams. We can get some fiber from this choice that we're having. How much protein are we getting in it? And then salt. So remember, we want to limit the salt intake, ideally about 2,500 milligrams, but at least less than 5,000 milligrams. So here, this one is 850, but it's very high in salt. That's 37%. And for percent values, we see that 5% or less is considered low and 20% or more is high. So this particular food will be high in salt and high in saturated fat. So 2 things that we're monitoring as women that we're not going to that we have to come back from, lower in our diets. So probably not a very good choice for this one. So just taking a quick look at nutrition labels to see how we make sure we are on the right path. Okay. So a few tips in terms of cooking and eating out and choosing healthy snacks. For cooking, we want to get the children involved because we want them to eat the healthy foods. And we find that when children come along and they're helping with the groceries and different things that, and if they're helping you to cook, they probably want to taste what they ate. Okay. So not all the time it gets confusing if you're going to bring a child or children into the kitchen, but, encouraging them in that way. Incorporate nutritious foods in traditional cooking. So I think that tradition has put us at a disadvantage because macaroni pie, etc., very high in calories, and just changing how we prepare certain things, using less cheese, making a white sauce, adding a little bit of wheat germ with the flour, when you're making your roux and different things like that. We can look up and there's so many recipes out there and, I'm encouraging people to try. So along with our traditional cooking, how can we minimize the amount of salt, the amount of fat, the amount of heavily refined um, flour, the pasta, etc. If we can choose whole wheat instead. Okay. So just looking at how we can incorporate nutrients. When I'm making pancakes, like for my children, they don't know that I would grind up some flaxseed and not too much because they would taste it, right? Put it in there and they think it's the little black things that look like cinnamon or whatever, and they love it. Fluffy pancakes, but they have some flavor and some good fats in there, right? So I try to do things like that, but different ways of adding it. In terms of eating out, yes, you can eat out. There are certain fast food restaurants here that have different options, right? Choosing the kids' portions, because they can fill us. Okay. So moving toward like a kids' portion, if you have to eat like a snack box or something like that, choosing the grilled or baked option, anything that's not fried. Okay. If you're out to dinner, the bread basket that comes around with the butter before, kind of, stay away from that if there's any calorie information on the menus, because some countries you do have to print it. We don't see it regularly here, right? But you can refer to that as well. And, try to cook home more often if you're somebody who eats out daily. But if you're going out to dinner, that's a nice night out. You can enjoy yourself, but, just trying to stay mindful of what we're doing. In terms of healthy snacks, right? We want to include the 4 foundational food groups: staples, legumes, food from animals, and vegetables. So No, I don't think I ever had a vegetable as a snack growing up, but people talk about, carrot sticks and different things. We can have granola, toasted granola with some raisins and stuff like that. So just moving away from tradition, buying a pack of something to having our own snack, and of course using fruits and nuts, crackers and cheese. These are snacks that we can use. Okay, this chart kind of summarizes all those things that we would have spoken about just now. And this is something that, can be shared and you can actually look it up, the Caribbean Food Groups Guide, because going over food from animals, fruits, different things, it gets confusing what is where. So you see what is included in each one, the choices that, are like you should make from each and how to put them together. Okay. So this is something that's available online. It's called the Caribbean Food Groups Guide. All right. So now we move into physical activity very quickly. Did I miss something? Right. Regular physical activity, now this goes hand in hand with improving our nutrition, can promote and maintain weight loss, okay? Improve cardiorespiratory fitness and build strong bones. We spoke about the benefits a bit earlier, okay? And we know that active children, research has actually shown that they become active adults. So this underscores the importance of establishing healthy habits early in life. Okay, so what are the habits that we're supposed to do? What are the recommendations? Okay, so the World Health Organization recommends, and this is the gold standard, is what people use throughout the world globally to implement in national policies. Okay, at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week. Okay, strength training, where you're engaging in muscle strengthening activities, flexibility, and balance for adults. And for children, age 6 to 17, at least 60 minutes of that moderate to vigorous physical activity daily. I don't know how many children get 60 minutes a day, right? Bone strengthening exercises like jumping and running, etc. And then climbing, push-ups, those kind of things like 3 times a week or so, monkey bars, right? Those will help with muscle strengthening as well. So 60 minutes a day for children, 150 minutes a week, at least for adults. Okay, so how do we get active? For someone who's not accustomed to being physically active, we say start slowly and increase slowly. So the goal, yes, is 150 minutes a week, right? So we can break it down like 30 minutes a day for 5 days a week, or you could do like 10-minute sessions. You could do a little walk here, a little aerobics video there, something like that throughout the day, right? To kind of add up because it will add up and it will have the same beneficial impact. Okay. So no matter how long you've been putting it off or how hard it seems, we can do this. All right. Things like encouraging your children to do extracurricular activities. We spoke about starting slowly, shorter bouts and building it up. Take your family with you. Everybody can be active at the same time. Have a pet, take him for a walk, a dog. During commercial breaks, you're watching movies and stuff like that together. Do some sit-ups, push-ups, some squats. If you're have a treadmill at home and you're watching Netflix, you could walk on it while you're watching an episode. Okay, and then we encourage active living. So you're walking, your chores, participating in sports, all of that can help you to get active. For women, so this is what the recommendation is. Moderate intensity for that 150 minutes or vigorous, or we can go with a mixture of moderate to vigorous. So how do you know if you're operating at a moderate intensity? Well, these raise your heart rate and make you breathe faster and you feel warmer. Okay. One way to tell if you're at the right level, you can talk, but you can't sing, right? You can take a breath, but you're not out. You have to breathe quickly, but you're not out of breath. Okay, so when you're moderate, you can feel you're working a little bit harder, but you can manage it. For vigorous activity, no, which is recommended if you're going to do this during the week, 75 minutes of it, or again, you can mix them, right? This is when your breathing is deep and rapid. You're going to start to sweat quickly, and you can't say a sentence without pausing for breath. Okay, so these are things like when you're in the gym and you're doing your high reps or anything like that, or you're sprinting instead of just walking, right? Those are vigorous activities. We have a table coming up that we're going to look at the difference in moderate versus vigorous activity. For older adults, though, why is in all three examples, when you're doing moderate, vigorous, or a mixture of aerobic activity, muscle strengthening is recommended 2 or more days a week. So if you're really good and you've been walking for a long time, we're encouraging you to include some kind of weight-bearing exercise because of something called sarcopenia, where your muscles, you will lose muscle as you get older. Okay. So to maintain muscle, we have to use it, right? And so after about age 30 to 35, we've been building muscle up until that time. And after that, we reach our peak. So then we have to, it is a very slow decline, but then it increases when we get about 65 or so. All right. So including some weight bearing exercise is very important, especially as we get older. All right. For children, we recommend a range of different activities throughout the week. They have to do aerobic as well as strengthening exercises, so things like walking to school, running around and playing. If they're swimming, you have a skipping rope at home, anything like that. Riding on the bicycle, skateboarding, skating. Okay. And in terms of building up their muscles and stuff, football, gymnastics, just jumping, sit-ups, push-ups. Okay. For children age 5 to 18, we want like at least 60 minutes, moderate to vigorous, every day. Okay. And then we encourage, like, we might not get to do it every day, but if they're in extracurricular activities, football team, dancing, different things, to encourage them to be involved actively every day. All right. Quickly at this table, we're looking at moderate versus vigorous versus more vigorous. So if you've been walking and you have to get to the vigorous, you will start taking a jog. So your 10-minute walk can include a 30-second jog, right? 10-second sprint if you want to get more vigorous, and then back down to walking. Okay. For swimming, you're in the pool, you're treading water, staying close to the edge. You might start to swim a couple of laps, okay? Or swimming even more laps, a bit faster, etc. Right? For dancing or any kind of low impact dancing, you would dance. You could do an aerobics video. So there's low impact ones, you don't do much jumping. Then there's the high impact ones where you can do them and also add some weights. Okay. Household chores, moving furniture and stuff like that, that gets a bit more vigorous than just vacuuming or sweeping. Right. So this just gives you a little overview of, different types of activity. So in all, maintaining a healthy lifestyle is crucial for both women and children. It sets the foundation for a long-term well-being, and a balanced diet combined with regular physical activity can enhance the quality of life, reduce the risk of chronic diseases, and improve overall health. So get active, balance those nutritional choices, and you are the model that the children will see. So they learn by what they see you do. So start today, start small, be consistent, and whatever you do, wherever you start, it will count. Thank you. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kathleen. That was very, very informative. Lots of information for us there with regards to, healthy eating, exercise, lifestyle for our children as well, included in that. We do have just, I think, 2 questions from our viewers on YouTube. I've not seen any questions in the chat here, but I will give persons an opportunity to open their mic shortly if they wish to ask a question directly. But I will ask the question that's from our YouTube chat. And this one is for, I would say, for Mrs. Stennett. Marjorie Cumberbatch, thank you for your question. She said, a very detailed presentation. Can a woman not having a menstrual cycle for 10 years or more and not being sexually active for a period of time, what is the risk of her developing cervical cancer? It's a bit of a long question, but I think we've got the gist of it.
That's a really good question. So I know when ladies come into the clinic, they'll say, I haven't been sexually active for years. Why do I need to have a HPV infection? And the simple answer is, if you do have persistent HPV, so if your body isn't able to clear the HPV infection, you could have been infected from years and years and years ago and not know that you have it. I should really stress that Even if you have one sexual partner, you're still at risk of HPV. Obviously, the more people you sleep with, the more chance you are exposing yourself to HPV. But to answer your question, yes, if you're not having a period for a long period of time, so you're menopausal, cervical cancer generally tends to be lower in menopausal ladies. You're more at risk of ovarian cancer and other uterine cancers, but you would still need to have the final screen around 65. So around on the 65th, I say do your pap smear and HPV. Once they're both negative, you can stop, you can relax and not do any more pap smears going forward. But as I said, you're more at risk of maybe ovarian cancer or different type of cancers.
Fantastic. So still get those checks in.
Yes, please.
Get those checks in. Thank you for that. I have a question here from Andrea Burnett. Thank you for your question, Andrea. Is the BMI chart, I think this is for you, Kathleen, is the BMI chart suitable to all ethnicities, or is that based on a European standard? Kathleen, are you with us? She dropped off. Kathleen? No, no.
Sorry, yes, my
Okay.
Zoom was minimized.
Sorry.
I couldn't find it. Sorry, repeat. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Did you hear the question, or should I repeat?
Sorry, repeat it for me, please.
Repeat it, yeah. So, is the BMI chart suitable to all ethnicities, or is that based on a European standard?
Or even if European or not, the BMI chart, it doesn't fit everyone, but it is still used. Everybody, the doctors, etc., they refer to this BMI. And however, you have to add waist circumference to it when you're looking at the person, their height, musculature, etc. We look at all of that. So it's not like we just use the BMI alone. So it's not suitable on its own, but practitioners will add it to other measurements as well in order to gain a good assessment.
Okay, so it's not to be used on its own, it's to be used with other tools as well.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you for that. Is there anybody in the room, in the Zoom room, that would like to ask a question at this time? Everyone's quite quiet. No?
Actually, I would like to say something.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, let me just say that, you know, I think, you know, we've got more than we could imagine. Very, 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 very valuable information. And for the men who thought that attending this, you know, was odd or stayed away because they felt it was a woman's thing. I'm here to tell you that, you know, as part of the human community, we need to know and have this information, such information for our wives, our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, our grandmothers, and so on. Because from what we hear, it has to be a community, family, immediate nuclear family, extended family effort. You know, the exercise regimes and so on cannot be done simply on our own. So I mean, this has been, and you know, I commend you, Colleen, for bringing, you know, these experts together. It has been quite, you know, Kathleen, Sarah, Valerie. I really feel that I would somehow like a replay of this. And I would somehow like UETV to become involved. I would like to see perhaps us target our students, because we have students of varying ages, you know, teenagers, as well as, I mean, when I presented council recently, we saw quite a large group in the 55 and over age cohort. So, I mean, this is really something else. I certainly would like, copies of the PowerPoints, because I think we got a treat tonight. I made some comments in the chat. I wanted to ask, and I think that's for Kathleen. Growing up, there was, we have a lot of fables, and truths, quote unquote, growing up that the old people have said, that you get a flu and you can sweat it out. Of course, I know of more than a few cases of people who have tried that and they have collapsed and died. We take a flu for granted. We think a flu is a passing thing and so on. But a flu affects the respiratory system and other, vital parts of the organs. And so I've known people to collapse and die attempting to, quote unquote, sweat off or sweat out a flu. Tell me something about that, Kathleen. What happens? Because when I get a flu, I sort of just abandon any exercise whatsoever, because not only that you feel, my mother used to say, rotten, but I do feel it's dangerous. What can you do physically in terms of, in the context of a flu? You're asked to rest. Now, very often you find when you rest, when you're in that prostrate position, you tend sometimes to feel even worse. Tell me, reflect on that for me. Say something to me from your expertise.
Well, from a nutrition point of view, definitely I have heard about sweating it out when you're ill, but you need to have enough fluids. You need to have especially whatever you can take in. People don't want to eat that much when they're not feeling well, right? So getting the liquids up, enough vitamins, minerals as they can tolerate. In terms of sweating it out, no, it's not necessarily recommended. In this day and age, this is not my area of expertise in terms of the medical impact of sweating it out. But like I can say, as a nutritionist, you do need to have your fluids up. And yes, when you're laying down too much, when you're ill, you do feel the need to move around some more. So listen to your body. So you're not going to push and say, I have to go and take my 10-minute walk today or my 30-minute walk, because you don't have the energy. You haven't eaten enough and stuff. So if you start to move your body's energy stores toward doing physical activity, then the healing process could even be delayed. So just very simple activities as you can manage while you are staying properly hydrated and eating what you can, so you can build back up that strength. And as soon as you can, once you are better, then yes, get back to your regular scheduled programming.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't want Valerie to feel left out of the questions. I have a question for you, Valerie. You mentioned obviously about heart health. How do we know that our heart is in good health? Is it just having the numbers, as you said? Or there anything else that we could look for to ensure that our heart health is healthy?
Right, so that's a very good question, Colleen. One of the things that we need to do, as I would have mentioned earlier, is knowing our numbers, and more so our blood pressure and the cholesterol. The cholesterol levels actually, when we do lipid panels, actually shows if we have risk factors for heart disease. So we know that the cholesterol, there are different types of cholesterol, the high density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins, right? And we know that the low density lipoproteins are the bad cholesterol, the high density lipoproteins are the good cholesterol, right? And we must have a good ratio in the body, right? I know Kathleen can attest to this as a nutritionist, right? And what happens when we go to the doctor, they will do a lipid panel, and the lipid panel will decide the risk associated with the amount of cholesterol, whether it is high, a high level of low density lipoproteins, or a or an adequate level of high density lipoproteins. So depending on what they see, they will associate a risk for cardiovascular disease, right? Because you want the high to be a bit higher than the low, because the high get rid of the low, right? The low density lipoprotein, what it does, it helps to develop plaque within the arteries, and it causes persons to be at risk for heart disease. So that is one indicator if you have a risk for heart disease, right? And also if you have high blood pressures and you see that your blood pressure is not being well managed, that can impact your risk for heart disease, and also family histories too. So the best thing is always to have this annual checkup, get your bloods done, and that will give you a good indicator where you are at. And you would have heard Kathleen talk about exercise. So if you're exercising and you're finding that you have certain exercise symptoms where you're short of breath, it's not normal. A normal symptom that is associated with exercise. You're feeling chest pain. You're feeling like, before you could go like a mile and now you can go half a mile. So all these are indicators that something may be wrong and you should go and have that checkup, right? So you won't just know. You have to go to the doctor to have that checkup.
Okay, so again, it's about that early detection. Even we talk about with Sarah was talking about in terms of cervical cancer, but also even with other parts of our body, it's about paying attention to our bodies and taking those checks and getting those numbers and asking those questions early. So that, yes, thank you for that. There is one question I'm seeing in the chat from Randy Gooden. I'm a personal trainer. My main clientele consists of females aged 30 to 50. One of my biggest challenges is convincing my clients to focus on the long-term benefits of exercise rather than just pursuing short-term results, such as losing belly fat. Belly fat struggle is real, Randy, some women. How can I keep my clients motivated to concentrate on their long-term fitness journeys? I think that's probably for Kathleen, in terms of motivation to concentrate on their long-term fitness journey.
Yes, motivation is a huge deal because anybody can do something for a couple of weeks, but to maintain it, going forward that's where the problem comes in. And even in nutrition, we have people that they come in and you don't see the results that you wanted in a particular time, and it's really hard. Why am I still doing this? What I encourage people is you find certain things, we make a list. What are the benefits and what you want to achieve. So yes, one of them is losing this weight, looking better, right? Do you have more energy? Are the clothes fitting better? Have you been sleeping better? What else has improved? Okay. And we set realistic goals. Okay. And one thing I do upfront, and I learned it the hard way, because it's very difficult for practitioners in fitness and nutrition when people feel disappointed when they haven't lost enough weight in a short space of time. What I do early is try to assess if you fully understand what it takes, what is going to happen here. So we set realistic goals. That helps, right? That with the client, I don't tell you this is all you can do. You have to wait. No, we talk about it, and okay, this helps, right? This is where we're going toward, and then we monitor progress toward that. All right. And we try to pick up on those markers in between that, say, okay, well, that's gotten better. This is improved, right? So muscle tone will increase even if the belly fat hasn't gone down yet, right? And the energy levels, et cetera, and stuff will change. So those are things that you can focus on, right? And again, with the realistic goal setting, that will help a lot more with motivation. So maybe the client has to, let's take a step back to the beginning. I just came and started working out. Let's go back and see what it is I should have been aiming toward, from the beginning. That helps.
Great, thank you. I think that answers the question. I think, going back to what Valerie said about a mouse eating an elephant, one bite at a time, kind of just looking at the smaller milestones that are being made. And, eventually the big milestone that they're looking for will eventually come if they remain consistent and do what they're supposed to be doing. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions? I am conscious of time. So just want to make sure to check the room. There's no more questions. I'm not seeing any more on YouTube, so have one. No, yep, your question was answered, Kathleen, so thank you. Okay, I have one last question then. What are some of the foods that you should avoid when you have high cholesterol? Kathleen, over to you again.
Yeah. All right. A common misconception is that high cholesterol foods cause high cholesterol in our bodies. Dietary cholesterol is different from the cholesterol in our body. Cholesterol in our body is how our body packages the fat that we eat. So foods to avoid are those saturated fats that we talked about. So anything that is high in saturated fat, high in fat overall are the ones we want to cut down on. Fried foods, butter, those things, if you can choose olive oil, if you're using dressings with mayonnaise, switch to low fat vinaigrettes, and stuff like that. So just coming away from high fat foods because those are the ones that increase the cholesterol in our bodies.
Great, thank you. What I'm hearing for you, Kathleen, is that you can make these small changes that can have a huge and significant difference. And it's not about not being able to enjoy your food. It's about, just changing certain aspects of our diet. As I said, it's about a lifestyle, a continuous lifestyle, and not just a diet. So yeah. Oh, Dr. Severin, over to you.
Yes, that's a very interesting question that was asked. And it sort of triggered in my mind another follow-up question, because I feel there is a misconception. People almost have in their minds a direct correlation between eating sugar and diabetes. Again, Kathleen, tell me what causes diabetes? Because there's hereditary, but there's also malfunction in the body and that kind of thing. There's some people who have a lot of sugary stuff, and others don't, but yet the latter may get diabetes. And of course, a lot of people do not remember that carbohydrates and all foods really descend into sugar. Tell me more about what causes diabetes, please.
Okay. So in terms of diabetes, we're talking about type 2 diabetes, because type 1, that's the one that you're born with.
Yes.
There's something wrong with your pancreas, right? So type 2 diabetes now is heavily influenced by our lifestyle. So as you were rightly talking about, like people focus on sugar, but sugar, carbohydrate comes in many forms. It's not all glucose, right? We're talking about the complex carbohydrates as well. So rice and bread and all those things, milk sugar, right? Milk counts as a carbohydrate as well. Okay, so when we're thinking about what we're eating, if it's a very high carbohydrate diet, then and we're taking in too much over time, we will stress the insulin response in our body. So when we go for, I was recommending, and I believe that the first presenter as well recommended getting those annual checkups, and we check our A1C if we have the blood panel done, and we see how our blood has how our sugar in our blood has been for the last 3 months. It tells us, how we've been handling ourselves. So in terms of getting our regular checkups, right? Seeing if we have been eating too much of the starches, the carbohydrates, etc. Because it's not just sugar, is as we said, it's the complex carbohydrates, milk, although we don't drink a whole lot of milk, many people, right? Again, those things, and fruits, very healthy for us, but fruits are also part of that. So it's just how much we take in during the day and spreading it out, giving our body a chance to work on what it has, and definitely physical activity, without any weight loss or anything else, it helps our insulin response to improve. Okay, so getting active and just taking note of all the different sources of carbohydrates that we take in.
Thank you very much.
Okay, last 2 questions. This is it now, people. I'm glad you're asking questions, but time is running. So we do have one actually from on our YouTube. Just quickly, what role does magnesium play? I think you gave a list of different minerals and things that we need, Kathleen. So this person's Andrea Burnett again asking, what role does magnesium play?
Hi, sorry, yes. Magnesium. In terms of our muscles, I know that it's a part of the muscle contraction, etc. So if you have that little twitch, sometimes your eye kind of flickers and cramps and those kind of things. It can mean that your magnesium levels are a little bit low, but it also helps with bones taking in other minerals like calcium, etc. They work together in terms of storing calcium in the bones, maintaining blood sugar levels, and it's something that we need a lot of in our diet, and we get it in most foods. So most people are not deficient in it necessarily, so you don't have to look at magnesium sources, etc. But it plays a role in many bodily functions overall. So yeah, like basically that's about it. So
Okay,
many reactions in the body and
thank
the
you.
muscles.
Great. I know you're not a doctor, but the question is high cholesterol also hereditary? I don't know if you're able to answer that from your position as a nutritionist.
It can be when you read the studies and stuff with they would say like cholesterol, it can be hereditary or black people or certain races might be more predisposed to
Mhm.
it for whatever reason. But studies are ongoing to see, what is the cause of many of these nutrition related conditions. So heredity has a role to play in it, but that's not the only one because just like with type 2 diabetes, you might have family members who had it, but it doesn't mean that you have to have it as well. Your healthy diet and activity level can prevent it ever happening. And it's not for people who are predisposed, it's for everybody to have those healthy lifestyle practices. So even if it is hereditary, it doesn't mean that it has to affect you to that level. But again, I'm not a doctor, so hopefully, you know, um, that part is, working. Sorry.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we can stop there. I'm not seeing any other questions, and so I think I think we will close here, looking at the time as well. So we come to the end of tonight's event. I really do hope the event was informative. I know I learnt so much from our presenters. So thank you so much. I don't know if you want to give a virtual round of applause for our presenters. I think they did an excellent job. And as the principal said, I think we've got more than we bargained for with regards to the information that we've received. So, round of applause to you all for your presentations. I'd like to thank, obviously, Valerie from the Heart and Stroke Foundation, Sarah from Cancer Society, and Kathleen from Good Step Wellness for your support and commitment to tonight's event. Fantastic presentations and lots of information. I'd also like to thank there's quite a few people that helped me put this together. It wasn't just me. There was a team of us. So I want to say thank you to Mrs. Marcia Reed and our wonderful Global Campus Marketing and Tech team, who without them, we would not have had the great promotional flyers and the tech support this evening. They were there in the background doing their thing. So thank you so much, Patrick and team. Thanks again to our esteemed principal, Dr. Francis Severin. Thank you so much for your support, and also the campus senior management team for their attendance and support this evening. I'd also like to thank my director of the Global Campus Consortium for Social Development and Research, Mrs. Cecile Minor, for her unwavering support and encouragement in putting on tonight's event. Absolutely so supportive. It was thank you so much. Words can't express. And last but not at all least, thank you to the audience for logging in, watching and spending time with us on this very important issue of women's health. So ladies, remember, know your numbers, get your checks, get some exercise, and enjoy healthy treats. I wish you all a very, Dr. Severin, do you wish to say something before I close? No? Okay. So I wish you, okay. I wish you all a very pleasant evening. Good night and God bless. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.